In this video, I'm going to share with you everything you need to know about where to stay and accommodations in Japan. Now, Japan really has many different hotel type accommodations than a lot of countries around the world, perhaps other places that you've been to. And so in this video, I'm going to break down what's the difference between a traditional Japanese inn, a ryokan, an onsen, a Japanese hot spring hotel, a business hotel, or maybe you want to stay at a capsule hotel. I don't know. You might find out after you finish watching this video, then you'll know which one of these Japanese style accommodations is right for you. Now, in addition to going through the different types of places you could stay at, I'm also going to show you how I book them, things you'll definitely want to know about booking, Japanese websites in particular to book them from, and even how to get the best deals on booking your hotels in Japan. Now, the first thing I want to dive into is just a little background about Japanese hotels and accommodations, and then we'll get into the differences. And so, one of the first things people often hear about lodging in Japan is they hear that rooms are small. And while it's true that there are many rooms that are quite small, this was a hotel we stayed at in Tokyo where the room was 9 square meters, like less than 100 feet, really quite small. They don't all have to be small. Actually, many hotels provide a range of rooms, often way more than Western hotels. Like you go to the Holiday Inn and every room is the same. That's often not the case in Japanese hotels. And so if you want a bigger room, you simply book a bigger room. And then in addition to just having different room sizes, they have different room types. So a type of room you'll often see is a Japanese style room. And we're going to get more into what that looks like, but you'll see on Japanese hotel websites, you'll see Japanese style rooms, Western style rooms, Japanese Western style rooms, single beds, twin beds, Hollywood twin beds, 3 beds, 4 beds, three beds, really, Chris? Do Japanese hotel rooms really have 3 beds? And yes, you can really book 3 beds. And what is a Hollywood twin bed? And we didn't know until we actually booked one of those rooms, but I'll share that with you as we're going through. Now, you should also know that hotels in Japan have non-smoking and smoking rooms. They still offer smoking rooms, and so if you are a non-smoker and you don't like to stay in a smoky room, then definitely make sure it is a non-smoking one. The best hotels when you're looking at where to stay are generally those near train stations. Generally, the closer it is to a big transit hub, the more desirable it is, simply because so many people just get around in Japan via public transit and not by driving. Now, because of that, you should also know that many hotels, particularly in the big cities in Japan, don't have parking. So if you do have a rental car, you need to specifically make sure that parking is something the hotel provides. And when it does, you should see where it is, because many hotels often advertise they have parking, but then when you go to look where it is, it's 3 or 4 blocks away in just a separate contracted city parking garage or private parking garage, and not actually something the hotel provides, just a place they direct you to instead. Now, you will find many Western chains in Japan, the Marriott's, Hilton's, Hyatt's of the world. In particular, this is the Hilton Tokyo Bay Hotel. But the Western chains are often way overpriced. And so we often don't stay in the Western chains because their price to value ratio just isn't really all that great. Now, if you're going to Tokyo, you should definitely book well in advance, particularly if you're going in like April, like cherry blossom season. And just another neat thing to know before we get into all the different hotel categories is that most hotels will accept Amazon packages. If you want to order things from Amazon and have them show up when you get to the hotel, you can totally do that. I mean, it's worthwhile to call the hotel and make sure, but we often have things sent from Amazon to our hotels in Japan, things we want to buy that we don't have time to go to the stores for, and that's pretty neat. All right, so now the first type of hotel that I want to get into in Japan are traditional Japanese inns, and these are often known as Ryokans. And let me turn the volume down on my phone so it's not beeping the whole time. Ryokans, Ryokans. And so let's talk about what a traditional Japanese style, what the experience is, what that looks like. And so this is the front door of a Japanese style inn that we've stayed at. And so they range in size from small, 10-room hotels to 200-room fancy big Japanese inns, but often at many of the older ones, you'll be asked as you come in the Japanese inn to take off your shoes and change into slippers, because in the smaller hotels, the kind of whole hotel is treated as a living space, and in Japan, you don't wear the same footwear that you wear outside on the street into living spaces. Now, the other option to this is if you don't take your shoes off right at the entryway, then they will definitely ask you to take your shoes off when you get into the room in a Japanese style hotel. Check-in may be done at a front desk in the bigger traditional Japanese hotels. In the smaller Japanese hotels, they may actually check you in your room, like at a table in the room that we're going to see here in just a moment. So you will generally be led to your room by somebody. They don't generally give you a key and tell you to run off yourself. They generally lead you to your room where there may be some more slippers waiting for you there. And then your Japanese style room at a traditional Japanese inn will always have some sort of low table like this on tatami mats. These mats that you see, they're not carpet. They're like, straw, dried straw. And these are what are in a traditional Japanese home, traditional Japanese inns, not carpet. You get this as the flooring. And this flooring is also doubles as where you sleep, that we'll see in a moment. But when you get into the room, you get a table like this, and as they lead you to your room, they will generally instruct you to sit down at the table, which they will then often explain the hotel, the property, the benefits, complete any check-in paperwork that needs to be done, and then finally make you a cup of tea. Could be a pot of tea, could be a cup of tea, could be matcha tea. Sometimes they do this out in the lobby instead of in the room, and it's also customary for it to come with some sort of welcome snack, some like small little Japanese sweet. They will also inform you where the yukatas are, which is their traditional Japanese informal attire, not to be confused with a kimono, which is really formal. Yukata is much more informal, although to the untrained eye could look a little bit similar. This is the yukata at one of the traditional Japanese inns that we've stayed in, and they provide these to all guests in the hotel, and they encourage you to wear them around. You don't have to. You can totally wear your street clothes around the hotel, but you'll look out of place. And so most of the people staying at the property generally change into their yukatas. And I should point out, if you're wearing the hotel slippers and you've got big feet like me, you might have a challenge, and so you might have to ask for their extra big slippers. I typically travel with my own pair of indoor slippers because I wear US size 15 shoes, which are really big for when I'm going to traditional Japanese inns because the slippers don't fit me. Now, question they'll often ask you right after you finish checking in a traditional Japanese inn is, when do you want dinner? Because meals are typically included as part of the Japanese inn booking experience. Typically dinner and breakfast, although you can get some without. But if you want the full traditional Japanese experience, then you're going to want to get the kaiseki dining, which is the basically lots of food and breakfast included. And I say lots of food because at many of these hotels, it's lots of food. You can find various packages for how you dine. Sometimes the dining is in your room, at the table in your room. Sometimes it's in a larger dining area. Sometimes the dining is in a private room. This was a Japanese inn that we stayed at where there was the restaurant in the hotel basically had all these private rooms set up, and you would come to the private room at the time you told them, and then you would get a feast. And so if you're staying at one of these hotels that does provide the kaiseki dining, allocate at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to eating your meal. It's not a quick dinner. Some of the more newer and maybe less formal traditional Japanese inns may provide a buffet type dinner, but that is less typical or less traditional than the kaiseki lots of courses dining. And when I say lots of courses, it can be low end, it can be high end, and sometimes there's different meal packages, so you should take a look at what you want, and it typically comes out to you in flights. Like if you're eating at a Michelin-starred restaurant, you get like 7 different courses for your meal. Now, if you do want dinner, you definitely should book it with your room, like as a package. Don't wait to get there and then say you want dinner, because these things are so fancy that they may not have any food for you if you didn't book it in advance. And then also for breakfast, if you need a Western breakfast, you should really make sure that the hotel provides Western breakfast, because at many traditional Japanese inns, this is what you're going to get for breakfast. Maybe not this exact tray, but this is a Japanese breakfast served at a traditional Japanese inn. You know, it's got some egg sushi, it's got a lot of seafood, not a lot of hot things in this case. A lot of Japanese breakfasts are traditionally a lot of cold foods. Hot things, you might get rice, you might get miso soup, and the rest of it might be cold. All right, and this is another traditional Japanese style breakfast, and you can see one plate mostly of seafood, one plate that has one piece of egg, a sausage, and a piece of ham. By the way, bacon, if you're a bacon lover, don't expect amazingly crispy bacon in Japan. It's always pretty soggy or not cooked as much as it is in the USA for sure, and the eggs are like the scrambled eggs are often much more runny than hard packed together. And Tokyo64 in the chat points out and saying, you don't need to eat in the kaiseki dining every day. You can choose which days you want to eat. We had dinner the last night and breakfast the last morning. That's a great tip. If you're staying at one for a couple days, yeah, you might not want the kaiseki dining every night. All right, thank you for that tip. And this is one where the hotel but breakfast looks a little bit more like a buffet. We personally prefer buffet breakfasts because they're just easier and quicker to go through, but they will often ask you what time you want breakfast to, and many of these hotels will have like breakfast like you can pick either 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 for your breakfast. That way they just make sure that there's enough room for everybody, because I'm sure you've been to those hotels once upon a time, and we were in one recently in Palm Springs where we got to the breakfast restaurant like it's full. You got to wait 30 minutes. Like, boy, that's a drag. And so they avoid that by just making you pick a time and a window, and that way they've got seats for everybody. All right, but you know, there can be some pretty good Western breakfasts. This is a Western breakfast at, gosh, what is that? What does that say down there? The Hotel Nikko Fukuoka. And one of the things I love in Japan are the eggs. In fact, much more orange than in most parts of the world, and really just much more of an egg flavor as part of them. A lot of these big hotels will have, you can get like 2 different types of breakfasts. They may have a Japanese breakfast restaurant and a Western style restaurant. So you might be able to get both and try one day, the Japanese breakfast one day, and then try the Western breakfast another day. All right, so now let's talk about sleeping in traditional Japanese hotels. Another reason why they ask you what time you want dinner is because at dinner time is when they come to make your beds. And by making your bed, I don't mean the same thing in a traditional Western sense, which is that they, put the sheets over them. I mean, literally put the bed in the room. These are Japanese futon beds that are typically hidden away in cabinets in the room. So when you come into the room, it's got the table in the center, and then at dinner time, the room ninjas come into your room. They move the table to the side, they bring the futons out of the closets, open them up, and then put the sheets on them and put the pillows down, and then this is where you sleep. The pillows are often not feather. There can often be like a buckwheat. It seems strange at first, but actually it grows on you as a comfort thing. It's pretty good when it's humid because it doesn't get as hot and sticky as a typical feather or foam pillow. Great thing about traditional Japanese style inns is related to beds. You can often sleep a lot of people in these rooms. This was a small one, so it only fit 2 beds, but many of them can provide up to 4 beds by default. 2 is typically included in the room price, and so 3 or 4, they're going to charge you more. Also, because these hotels typically include food, which then that's going to cost you more as well. Yeah, Kathy says she would have come into that room and said, where's the bed? Right when there's no bed and there's just a table, and it's because the bed comes out later. Right. Now, you can also get Western-style rooms. So the room I just showed you before at a traditional Japanese inn would be referred to as a Japanese room. Now, you can get traditional Japanese rooms at bigger hotels too. So if you see a Japanese room, you know what you're looking at. Japanese room, it's going to have tatami mats on the floor. It's going to have that low table when you start, and then it's going to have futons as sleeping arrangements. If you see a room or a hotel advertising Western rooms, it's going to look like this. It's going to have actual mattresses that are raised up. That's the primary difference between a Japanese room and a Western room. The Western room also has carpets generally instead of tatami mats. In a Western room, they're typically not expecting you to take off your shoes when you come into a Western room because people don't always do that in the West. Now, what is a Japanese Western style room? It's a room that kind of looks like this, and literally that's how it'll be advertised. You've got Japanese rooms, you've got Western rooms, and then you've got Japanese Western rooms. This is a Japanese Western room. The Japanese Western room has tatami mats, has beds with mattresses raised up, and then often a low table that you have there, and then often the ability to add 1 or 2 more beds as futons in this area where the low table is. So those are the different room categories to look at if you're staying in traditional Japanese inns. The other thing you should pay attention to are the bathrooms, because many traditional Japanese inns are old or older. They're not always full bathrooms in the rooms or bathrooms at all in the rooms. And so take a look at what the bathroom situation is. If you want a bathroom in your room, make sure it has one before you book it. But why is it that many of these traditional Japanese hotels don't have bathrooms? Well, it's because, and now we're on to the next category of hotels, it's because many of them have Japanese hot springs. And so in this case, we would refer to a hotel that has a Japanese hot spring in it as an onsen. Onsen, Japanese hot spring hotel. And so because many of these traditional Japanese inns also have hot spring baths, then the theory goes you as the guest are likely going to be taking a bath here and not in your room. So why spend the money to give you a big bath in your room when everybody's going to be coming out here to the public bath to bathe? Oh, by the way, if you want to dive more into hot spring hotels, I've recently published a 90-minute video about my 7 favorite hot spring hotels in Japan. I have a link for that in the description of this video. And if you just kind of like want to see them on a map, you don't want to dive into the video, I also have a link in the description where I go into a map that shows you where they are, and then you can dive into any individual videos that you would want from any one of those hotels as I've done them in the past. Okay, but more about onsen hotels. So they can be like small, but they can also be big mega resort hotels. This was one we stayed at in Fukushima Prefecture a couple of years ago on our last trip, and it was like this amazing multi-level lobby, private rooms over water. Like it was an amazing hotel. They've taken all those traditional elements, but just turned it into something that is grand and has hundreds of rooms rather than a place that only has 20. And so typically in onsen hotels, the baths, those public baths, they're not common for everybody. There's separate men and women. So they're gender separated. There's a male bathing area and a female bathing area, often with indoor and outdoor areas that you have to remove your clothes before you go into the bath. And then you have to shower before you go into the bath. The bath is really intended for soaking, health, relaxation, and the showers that you go into before are intended for cleaning. I also have a whole video about etiquette for onsens, like for being in that public bath. You can check that out in my onsen guide as well. And this is what the entrance to those hot spring baths often look like. Now, some onsen hotels you can get with a private onsen bath in your room, because for many first-time visitors, it can be kind of weird to go into no clothing common baths. And so if you're in that category where you're not ready for that deep dive yet, then consider looking for a hotel that has either a private onsen in the room. Sometimes it's in the room as the actual bathtub where they pipe the hot spring water. Sometimes it's out on the balcony. And then there's also another option where they'll have like some set of them that you can like reserve. So they're still kind of like public or common ones, but you can reserve it for like an hour for you and whatever group that you're with. And Brandon points out that 90-minute video that I did on my 7 favorite hot spring hotels freaked him out that he missed a sudden live stream. And no, because just I replaced what I was doing as a live stream with that video. So that's why you found a 90-minute long video there. Kathy says, I wouldn't go into an open bath with other people. Yeah, and I totally said that the first time. I was like, I'm not doing it. And it's one of those where you got to do it. And it doesn't seem weird after you've done it a few times. Actually, we love Onsens. And Shelly says, do I have a favorite one? In that 7 favorite hot spring videos, I go through my 7 particular favorites. But every trip, we generally go to 2 to 3 hot spring hotels on each trip. Our upcoming trip here in April, we've got 3 hot spring hotels booked as part of that trip. Tokyo64 says, I love going into open baths because I can have some great conversations for sure. I remember related to having great conversation, this is why even as like somebody who doesn't speak a lot of Japanese, sometimes the Japanese men that are there will like be trying to practice their English and ask me what I think about Obama or Trump or, whatever the news of the day is. And it's also another one of those really interesting cultural experiences. All right. And this is what it would look like if you had one that had the Japanese hot spring bath in your room. This is one we had that was that private bath. If you get one that has it in your room, and by the way, when I say in your room, this one was actually right outside. They're going to cost more money. The rooms are just more money because it costs more to pipe the hot spring water to every room. All right, let's go into the next room category. So we've covered traditional Japanese hotels. We've covered onsen hotels. Now let's talk about the Western chains, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, and the Hyatts. And these are the places that most Western travelers default to because they know them. They know how to book them. You just go to Marriott.com or Hilton.com or Hyatt.com. Seems easy to book. You feel like you know what you're getting. They're primarily in the big cities. And the great part about it is that they're often much better than their counterparts in the USA. Like a Marriott in Japan is like twice as good as the Marriott in the USA. If you want big rooms in the big cities like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, you will then want to look at these Western chains because they just simply do build bigger rooms because they know they're catering to clientele that expects bigger rooms than their Japanese counterparts. You will typically not find yukatas in Western chains in Japan, but you will often find custom pajamas. This is the Marriott in Osaka. And instead of robes in the room, it had these very nice custom Marriott Osaka pajamas. Oh, and great views from this hotel, too. All right. I am thirsty. I'm going to drink before I go on to the next one, which is Japanese Western style chains. Not Western brands in Japan, but Japanese chains that are basically copies or inspired by the big Western chains. And what is Chris drinking today? Chris today is drinking some jasmine tea. I'm going to put that in front of my face so folks. It's some jasmine tea from where? Yes, from Japan. Jasmine tea is one of my favorite kind of teas. It's I like the mild flavor that comes with jasmine tea. All right, so Japanese Western style chains. This is not Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt. These are brands like Nikko, ANA, as you know, the airline, JR, as you know, the railway, Japan Railways, JR. They have their whole brand of hotels. JAL, Japan Airlines, have their whole brand of hotels. And Hoshino Resorts is another one that we like, and we're staying in a couple Hoshino resorts on this next trip. I would really encourage you to look into these. This is the lobby of Nikko Hotel, and you can see it looks like a Western hotel, a grand Western hotel, except with some interesting Japanese character motifs right up there. And Then here we have like the inside of one of the rooms, and you can see this it looks like a nice room. There was a question in the chat about Japanese Western styles. Jenny says, I booked the Richmond International Asakusa. And so I would say that, yes, the Richmond hotels are Japanese Western style chains. They're a little bit in the category that I'm going to go to in the next one, which is business hotels. But there's kind of like something that blends in right there. Blue says Daiwa Roynet in this category as well. The big difference between what I'll call the Japanese Western style chains and the business hotels is the Japanese Western style chains, they prioritize the size of the room, the size of the lobby, the size of the common areas, the service that goes with a big hotel, where the business hotels in Japan really focus on just trying to give you the most economical sleeping area possible. So the business hotels are brands like Toyoko Inn, Route Inn, APA Hotel, Super Hotel, and they're called business hotels because their primary target are the Japanese business travelers that are staying in cities for just one night. They're basically checking in, at 9 or 10 p.m. They're sleeping there, they're getting cleaned up in the morning, and then they're checking out. And so these rooms are not rooms that you're going to have a party in or invite a bunch of guests to, but they will be clean, they'll be comfortable, and you'll get a good value. This is an example of a Japanese business hotel room. You can see there's nothing to write home about here, but it does have pajamas on each bed, because you know what? On business, you might not have brought pajamas. So you might want to wear their pajamas. And this is where you get into the really small rooms, and which is great for people who know what they're getting into. Sometimes gives people a bad taste when they get these rooms, because you may often find, this is actually a big one, you may find in one of these hotels that there is not enough room to open your suitcase on the floor. Like, you will have to open your suitcase on the bed. There may often not be enough room for your suitcase, period, in the room. Like, you got to open it on the bed, and then at like Toyoko Inn, they've often raised the bed up enough that you can slide your suitcase underneath to store it down there. And Tokyo 64 says a business hotel will also have a surprisingly nice buffet too. And Tokyo 64 says we're staying at Toyoko Inn this June. I hope you enjoy it. Sean says, are there swimming pools? There are swimming pools in many of the Western hotels, though you should know that if you want to swim in a Japanese swimming pool, you will need to wear a swim cap over your hair. And in the cheaper or lower end hotels, they may expect you to bring a swim cap. The higher end hotels all provide swim caps. Some in the middle, they might ask you to buy them for a few hundred yen. But yes, expect to have a big rubber dome on your head if you're swimming in Japanese swimming pools. Jay says, I can't wait to visit Japan. I'll be bringing your guys before I go big time. Awesome, Jay. Thank you very much. Okay. The other thing you should be aware of if you're booking a Japanese business hotel, these ones that have the smaller rooms, is that they will often have a very strict limit on the number and types of people in the room. What do I mean by that? So they may say this room is only big enough for one person. And that's it. And if you've got two people to check in, they're like, you can't check into this room because this room is only big enough for one person. Or this room's big enough for one person, one child. Or two adults and one child. And so just beware of that. Okay. Capsule hotels. I often get asked a lot about capsule hotels. Chris, should I look into capsule hotels? Chris, have you stayed at a capsule hotel? I personally have not yet stayed at a capsule hotel. I may stay at one just to make a video of it. But capsule hotels, they can be really cheap. They're designed for the business traveler that has missed their last train. And so they don't need a comfortable place to sleep. They just need a convenient place to sleep that really they're just going to sleep for just a few hours, maybe until train service starts running in the morning. And so what you get in capsule hotels is you get these little, areas that are like no bigger than almost like a coffin for you just to kind of like slide into and sleep. You can get these for 3,000 to 4,000 yen a person, like $30 a night. You'll have some common showers. You can take a shower and freshen up. In that little capsule, there will typically be a television and some coin lockers that you can store your luggage. Really, you don't want to spend more than one night in a capsule hotel, I think. All right. And Kathy says, no thanks, I need a bit more room when I sleep. Yeah, and the problem with capsule hotels, what I hear from people who stay at them, since I haven't stayed, is that they're really noisy. Particularly, guys often snore. And when there's no doors on those things, they're just curtains, you can hear a lot of that in those places. And Brandon says, doesn't have as much space, has lights, a TV, and a reading light. Yeah, that's it. Cottage Full of Love says, enjoy your night in what feels like a coffin. No thanks indeed. All right. Now, a lot of people often ask about love hotels in Japan. And so this is a whole category of lodging for hotels that offer hourly rates in addition to nightly rates. So here at the Hotel Casanova, you can see they offer a few different rates for different levels of hourly rates versus nighttime rates. And love hotels, they're not designed to be booked in advance. People typically turn up to stay at a love hotel, generally for couples that don't have a lot of quiet space at home, and so they want quiet space in a hotel. This is another one that I don't really recommend it as your plan A, as like lodging. But in a pinch, if your Airbnb got canceled, if you're stuck and you missed your train, you didn't book the right tickets, you can totally walk around and you can totally book a love hotel to actually sleep in for the night, because they actually do have beds. But you'll get your choice of rooms, like maybe a circular bed that spins and a mirror on the ceiling. Those are things you'll find in the love hotel. All right, another category for like some of the lowest, cheapest place to sleep are manga cafes. Cafes that are designed basically for you to come in and read Japanese comic books, except they're not just open in the daytime, they're open 24 hours a day. You can see this is an advertisement here for a manga cafe, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it too. You can see they advertise, they've got books, they've got places you can sleep, and they've got showers, common showers. The sleeping places can often be, you can often get your little space that looks bigger than that capsule hotel, often cheaper than capsule hotels too. You can often get the way man cafes work is you basically pay admission to go in, and so they can be 1,500 yen to 3,000 yen, like $15 to $30. We went to one that the sleeping areas were like the capsules were made of plywood. I mean, it didn't look comfortable, but it was cheap for sure. So anyway, they're a good option if you're looking for the cheapest possible place to stay. Check the manga cafes. Another really neat cultural experience that you could have is by staying in a temple while you're in Japan. Particularly, many of the Buddhist temples offer tourist temple stays where you can come as part of a package and live like the monks or the nuns in the temple, where you can eat their food, you can practice in their prayers, which often include a 4 a.m. wake up to some big drums. Really great for vegetarians, because the temples, they typically eat vegetarian food. But if you really are looking for the maximum cultural experience while you're in Japan, check out a temple stay. Another budget option are hostels, and great part about hostels in Japan is they are clean and they are safe, and they're cheap too. Again, you might be in a room like this that has 4 bunks. In my opinion, better than a capsule hotel. Also better if you're looking at a place to meet and mingle with other travelers, because hostels often cater to Western travelers, European travelers that are used to that sort of thing. So a great place if you want to meet up with some other travelers and find some short-term traveling friends to do some things while you're out and about. And some hostels may even accept you to do some work for them in exchange for staying in the hostel. Tokyo 64 points out that at the temples, the food is very bland with just a little bit of salt. It is. Yeah, don't expect any like amazing Michelin-starred meals at a temple, but honestly, I feel like eating their bland food is part of the cultural experience. It's probably just a one-night stay, though. It's probably a one-night stay. And the temple stay, they'll probably ask you to get there like at a certain time, like get there at 4 o'clock, be there for some information, be there for some prayers, be there for dinner, early night sleep, early morning wake up, and then, hey, get out of here by 9 o'clock or something like that. Codgeville Love says an amazing experience. It is definitely an amazing experience that if you do it, you'll look back on as something to be like, wow, I have a whole new insight for the people who live, work in these temples. I don't have a great desire to do it, but I have a whole new respect and understanding for their life. All right. Now, two categories I also get asked a lot about are these two, which are sleeper trains and sleeper buses. So Japan used to have a lot more sleeper trains than they do now. Now there's basically one main sleeper train route in Japan from Tokyo down to the Osaka region. It's called the Sunrise Express. It goes from Tokyo to Osaka, and then it splits off into two other lines to Takamatsu and Okoyama. It runs, so there's two of these trains, and so they kind of run both ways simultaneously. They leave their starting station around 10 p.m. and get into their end station around 7 a.m., so it works out for a good night's sleep. This is what the common sleeping areas look like in it. You can book fancier rooms, although it'll cost you more money if you book the fancier rooms. The one ticket, one way, Tokyo to Osaka is about 12,000 yen or 120 US dollars. You get transport, and then you don't have to get a room for a night. It's also the most basic accommodations, and are also covered by the JR Pass. And so this is a real great option to get someplace overnight, not spend money on a hotel. And particularly with the JR Pass, then it ends up, being a free, although common and maybe same noisy hotel room for the night. But if you're a heavy sleeper, by all means. The cheaper option, and what really has replaced a lot of these overnight trains, are overnight buses. And the thing about buses in Japan is they're actually really nice. And so you can look into these too. Overnight bus with pods that you can sleep in, and cheaper and go more places than the train. Now with the advent of Airbnb, there's Airbnb in Japan too. So if you're looking for a bigger accommodation, someplace that has a kitchen, take a look at Airbnbs. But if you did that, you would totally miss out on the fish on a stick at the traditional Japanese inns. I'm bringing this all back to where I started, which is the Japanese inns, which I think is the coolest type of accommodation to stay at in Japan. And yes, this was fish we were served for breakfast at a traditional Japanese style inn, which made the thumbnail of this video. But you know what? When do you get to do that and get to take a picture of it like that, looking very, very confused? Let's see. Right. And OC Girl says she has done the sleeping train from Tokyo to Hokkaido 20 years ago before the Shinkansen. At the time, it's the cheapest way to get there. So there you go. Thank you for adding that, OC Girl. And thank you for joining in to the chat. Everybody say hi to OC Girl. All right. And Sunshine says hi from Australia. Hi, Sunshine. All right, so now I want to get into how do you actually book these hotels? And so I'm going to go ahead and switch to share my screen and click this button right here, and I'm going to go into the corner. All right, so talk about how do I book Japanese hotels and how do I find good deals on them. And so kind of the first order that we do when we're going someplace is I go to TripAdvisor and I type in, the city and hotels about where I'm going. So if I'm going to Tokyo, I go ahead and type that in. I usually ignore the check-in, the checkout stuff down here, and I come down to see how many there's a lot of hotels in Tokyo. And then I change this sort by from best value which is in the middle, so it's weird. It always comes out as default, but it does. And I change it to traveler ranked. And so I want to look at the hotels that people vote the highest. And then if you want to see room rates, you can come in here and you can say like, okay, I'm interested in coming August 7th to 14th. And then it'll go ahead and like add some pricing in from some of the common providers. And this is where the first one is an ad, so that's not the first one. So the one that like people love the most is this Gatestay Premium Nihonbashi. Is that the best hotel in Tokyo? Probably not. There's like some bias I find where like it's generally not the luxury properties that end up at the top of the list. It's sort of like the like cool places to review, because those are the things people want to review. They want to be like, I had this most amazing funky stay, which again doesn't always mean it's necessarily the best. And so I look in here, I look at number of reviews, I click and I look at pictures. When I click in to look at pictures, I don't generally start with the photos the hotel provides. I like to click on the traveler provided pictures so I see what people actually uploaded in here. And then I look at the actual like text reviews that are down here. And you can like search for things like, I might be particularly interested in breakfast. And so I'll type in search and I'll look and see what people go ahead and have to say about breakfast. The other way I narrow it down, because sometimes TripAdvisor can be hard just looking through like numeric rankings, is I go to Google Maps and I type in a region. So let's say we want to stay in Sendai, which is a big city to the north of Tokyo. And then there's like an area where like, hey, maybe I want to stay, just picking a random place here. Maybe I'm going to this temple right here and I want to stay near it. And so I check hotels up here at the top, and then Google Maps starts to display a lot of hotels up here. You can like tell it when you're going. You can look in, July, for example. And then it's also nice because it pulls up prices here, and you can click on them and you can see what those hotels look like. And then you can click through to the various booking platforms. For $54, you can, stay in a hotel, or $150, you can stay at the Westin. So I do this for a bit of research to like also narrow it down to a few set of hotels that are near the place that I'm trying to go to. So then when I actually go to book hotels in Japan, Agoda is typically my platform of choice. And why? Because, not because it's a Singaporean company, it is a Singaporean platform, and they often have really great deals on Japanese hotels. Like, I often find better prices on Agoda than I do on the hotel's website directly. And now many hotels will advertise what they have like a best rate guarantee, where they'll say, we guarantee that the prices on our website are the cheapest anywhere. Or if you find it cheaper, we'll go ahead and match the price. That's what the guarantee. The guarantee doesn't mean they have the cheapest prices. The guarantee means that if you find it for less, they'll go ahead and honor that rate if you book it direct for them. I've never had any issues booking with Agoda. I book and show up and my reservation's always there. Some of the things I like about searching on Agoda is it does a good job of telling you about the rooms and the room types. And so you can see here, this hotel in Sendai, the APA Villa Hotel, has 8 room types. So Japanese, Western, we'll look at those in a moment. 70 room offers, meaning like different packages for those rooms. The first one is a small double smoking room. People smoke in this room. Small. It's 12 square meters, 129 feet, with a semi-double bed. And it also has a shower and a bathtub in the room. And it will sleep 2 people. Not 3, not 2 adults and a child, 2 adults only. And then you can see there's all these like different packages that you can get on this one. This isn't a traditional Japanese style inn, but you can get like dinner and breakfast and those sorts of things. If we scroll down to look at some of their other rooms, we've got the double non-smoking, but then we get like the twin room. So this is confusing because in the West, Like a double room often has double beds, but that room, the double room, just has one double bed. And then a twin bed typically has two beds, but they're not two twin beds, they're two single beds. And if you want to know the room size, twin doesn't mean the same at every hotel in Japan. There's twin and then there's large twins. You really often have to go look at the website to find the exact size of the bed. But you can see this room's also bigger. It's 16 square meters, 172 square feet, $80. For me, this room is still pretty much too small. So I generally like a room that is a minimum of 20 square meters to be comfortable, and 25 square meters is even better. I'm going to come here for a moment because I got just like a couple more pictures on that. Oh, by the way, I said rooms have 3 beds. You can totally get a room with 3 beds right there. And if you get a small room, the Asakusa Hotel Hatago, this room is 9 square meters that we stayed at last time we were in Tokyo. And that's what the desk looked like in the room. Literally, that's the desk. No chair. You sit on the floor. In the bathroom, you can't stretch your hands across. So when we talk about small, 9 square meters, really small for the room. Or the Hyatt Centric in Tokyo and Ginza, 35 square meters, 376 square feet. Pretty big room. Price difference, the Tokyo Hotel Hatago, the room's like $140 a night. At the Hyatt Centric, they're $500 plus a night. So you pay for that extra space. But then, on many of the hotel websites, you can find diagrams of what the rooms actually look like. So you won't find it on Agoda, but you'll find it on a hotel website. So go ahead and look into those. And then this is like a picture of a 25 square meter room, which is like where I will start to like for comfort levels. And I give you those numbers because they might not mean a lot to a lot of travelers because we often don't look into those things, but you definitely need to booking hotels in Japan. All right, so just a couple more places I like to use to book hotels. I also like Rakuten, which is like a Japanese company that only books hotels in Japan. You can go to travel.rakuten.com to book them here. Another great choice is Japan I Can, which is run by JTB, the biggest travel tour provider in Japan. And then finally, there are some hotels that you won't find on these websites, like the Hoshino resorts. You might not find them here, or if you do, they might say they are sold out. And then if they do say they are sold out, like here, sold out. This hotel is sold out. It's not sold out. If you go to the Hoshino Resorts website, you can book it just fine. And so if you find one of these platforms says it's sold out, don't believe it. That just means they don't have any rooms they can book for you. You need to go directly to that hotel's website to figure it out. And then there can be a little bit of challenge about Japanese or English. I'll say Japanese hotel websites often aren't the best, but you can always use Google Translate to translate it into English.
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
All right, fellow explorers, what questions do you have about hotels in Japan? If you asked one before and you're on the live stream and I didn't answer it, go ahead and ask again. If you're watching the archive, go ahead and ask too, because I answer all questions on the archive. And first of all, I want to thank Jamba very much for the little cute lemon character in the chat. Thank you for your support. Jay gives a second thumb up for Agoda, said he used it in Thailand and was happy for everything. Jay says, where should a first-timer go to Japan? I have a whole video about perfect itineraries in Japan, but the classic route is 2 weeks in Japan, you spend a week in Tokyo or 5 days, you take the bullet train to Hakone, you stay there for a couple of days, you take the bullet train down to Kyoto, you stay there for a few days to see the temples, you end up in Osaka, and then you fly home from Osaka. So that's the classic Japan itinerary. Gene says, what's the custom of tipping hotel staff in Japan? Is service charge added to the bill? Don't tip in Japan. They don't tip. Tipping really isn't a thing in Japan. So don't tip in Japan. There you go. And yes, if there needs to be a service charge is added to the bill. Generally, you don't find service charges. Generally, the price is just the price. Dining with Derek says, what hotel do you like to stay at in Sapporo? It has been so long since we've been to Sapporo. I mean, we were there like 10 years ago. So I'd probably be inaccurate to like give you the hotel we stayed at in Sapporo. I mean, actually, we've been twice to Sapporo. We did 2 different hotels. But anyway, too long ago. I would stay in the central downtown core district. They have this really neat network of like underground tunnels that you can walk around, and so I would look at a hotel that like connects into that underground network of passageways, particularly if you're going there in the winter when it's really cold and you want to be underground. Franco says, is breakfast really worth paying for in Tokyo? I mean, yes and no. I guess it depends how much it is. If breakfast is, for me, if breakfast is more than $20 or $25, then it's like too much. So if you find the breakfast at your hotel is more than that, then just go to 7-Eleven, Lawson Station, the convenience store, and eat a convenience store breakfast. Because honestly, the food at Japanese convenience stores is pretty good. Sunshine at Heart says, would you like to stay in Japan for longer than a vacation? I think it'd be neat to live in Japan for a while, which I guess means, would you like to stay in Japan for longer than a vacation? Yes. Aaron says, is Disney Sea worth going to? Disney Sea is the second Disney theme park in Tokyo. There's Tokyo Disney, or Disneyland, and then there's Disney Sea. And Disney Sea is my favorite Disney theme park anywhere. So the answer is yes, it is definitely worth going to. I got a whole video on it. If you haven't seen it, search Yellow Productions Disney Sea, and you'll find it. Kira says, when should I book my room for September trip? My answer is right now. And the reason why right now is you should book hotel rooms that are refundable, changeable, for free. Don't book any, this far out, don't book any prepaid non-refundable rates. Just book some. Make some speculative bookings at hotels. And then about 3 months out, I would revisit them again. Have they gotten cheaper? Are other hotels cheaper? And then I would revisit them again about 4 days out. Most hotels' cancellation penalties is 3 days. And so a few days out, you can look and see if anything got way cheaper, and it did reevaluate at that point. But for our trip coming up to see the cherry blossoms, we were booking our hotels in January, and we were already finding a lot of limited availability, particularly for us traveling, OC girl, I, and our 3-year-old daughter. 3 of us limits where we can stay because many hotel rooms in Tokyo in particular cater to 1 or 2 travelers. And by the time you add a third, the price and the price increases and the room categories significantly decrease. Sean says, how do I find hotel rooms with a full kitchen in Japan? That's harder. Not many hotels have full kitchens in Japan. I would start at Google. Honestly, at Google, I would type in hotels with full kitchens in Japan. And Blue Biome says, flights and hotels have been going up. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have really decided to go to Japan now. I've noticed it just in the view rates in my videos recently. The questions people have been asking on things like people are Japan bound again, which means with more people going, hotel prices are definitely going up. Rebecca asks if I'll go to Super Mario World in Japan or will you be making a video about Hollywoods. We are not going to the Osaka region on this trip, so I won't be making a video on this trip. Definitely when we do go to the one in Hollywood, because I'm sure we will, I'll make a video on that. Sunshine of Heart asks if I've learned Japanese yet. Not yet. Thank you. Sean asks where we're staying in Japan. You'll see a whole bunch of videos on it once we actually stay there. And if I told you right now, it might not actually be the same hotels that we end up staying at, because I took my own advice, which is we booked a whole bunch of hotels in January, and then we revisit them as time goes on when we find other places, we like other places, if the rates go down. So what we have booked right now might not actually be where we stay. On our recent trip to Whistler in outside of Vancouver, Canada, we switched up all of our hotels within 3 days of our trip. Not that I love to do it, but it is something that we do. Jay seconds eating the food at the convenience stores. It's really good. If you've been to 7-Eleven in the US and you look at the food and be like, that is a really sad hot dog that's been sitting there for 6 hours. 7-Eleven is actually a Japanese-owned company, and 7-Elevens are way better in Japan. Go there. The food is fresh and tasty. It's amazing. Sparky says, are they typically accommodating of room requests? This time around, we'll be going with a friend. We have separate rooms. I added a note when booking, requesting they will be near one another. Thank you. Sparky, I would also call the hotel and make that request too. I think if the room request is something that's feasible, then they are. The challenge with a lot of Japanese hotels and like room types is that, if the hotel is 8 floors, there may be like all the rooms on a floor might be like, there might be one room type. So like if there's 8 rooms on a floor, each one of those rooms might be a different room type. And so if you booked 2 double rooms, there might not be 2 double rooms on the 4th floor. There might be one on the 4th floor, and there might be one on the 5th floor. And so I think it's worthwhile calling the hotel, saying that you want that, to see if they then, give you any like, oh, well, if you want that, then you need to book a double room and a triple room, because that's the only way you can get them together. Eric says, my son Samuel wants to know if you are baking bread behind. I am definitely baking bread behind me in front of the fireplace. That's right. This is my keyboard wrist rest. Where does it come from? Japan. That's where that comes from, of course. Sunshine says, do you like to use rental cars in Japan on this? So I have 2 answers to this, which is to say, when OC Girl and I would go to Japan before we had our daughter, I would say we would rent a car every other trip, perhaps, for some portion of it. We'd, fly into some big city, spend a few days there, then get a rental car to drive around the country. On this trip, because we're traveling with our 3-year-old daughter, we are landing in Tokyo Haneda. We are getting a rental car at Tokyo Haneda, and we're going to have that rental car for the whole time we're in Japan, including while we're staying in Tokyo. We're not going to use it while we're in Tokyo, but we're going to park it at the hotel, because actually Tokyo hotel parking's like 2,000 yen, 2,500 yen, surprisingly cheap compared to like San Francisco hotel parking, which is like $75 a day, just because with a 3-year-old and all the stuff that we're going to have, really kind of critical for us to have a rental car to get around. And Tokyo says, yeah, we rented a car in Niigata for a week. It was a wonderful experience. I've loved every rental car experience I've had. We always rent from Toyota rental car. Toyota, the car company, also rents cars. So it's not like Hertz and Avis, it's Toyota. And so it's kind of neat, in my opinion, to like rent a rental car from Toyota. And if you book on their English website, then there's like check marks to get a English GPS in the car, which you will want to get around. Meritocratic Mafia asks if it's a challenge to drive on the other side of the road. I feel like for the first day or 2, you got to get like your head around it. But once you get your head in the space, you just kind of fall into it. Sheriff says, have you experienced booking JR hotel chains with a JR pass? No. So I don't know about that one. So Blue Biome does say the biggest challenge is where the controls are. So yeah, when you're on the other side of the road, the blinker or turn signal's on a different side of the steering wheel. So that is the hardest. And even a few days in, I might be like turning my wipers on when I want to turn on my turn signals. Jenny says, is it scary to drive around Tokyo? I don't find it, in Tokyo in particular, I don't find it scary to drive around Tokyo, because Tokyo actually has like wide and decent roads. Where it's scary to drive around are like the smaller Japanese towns where the roads are like super narrow and you gotta like go through these really tight spaces. The problem with driving in Tokyo is no place to park. There's no place to park your car once you get someplace, or no place nearby. And in the big cities, a lot of the parking won't be like parking garages where you park your car. It'll be like they take your car into like an indoor Ferris wheel, basically like an elevator where they park them. So they're not really parked as much as they're like hung up and stacked someplace, which is also just kind of neat.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
All right, fellow explorers, with every Yellow Productions live stream, I always give away just point this way. I always give away a Yellow Productions crew t-shirt to someone who answers one of my questions, and I'll ship it to you anywhere in the world. You gotta answer this question correctly. My question is, I showed you a picture of where I was wearing some fancy pajamas in a Western chain hotel in Japan. What hotel was I wearing those fancy pajamas at? And if you answer that question correctly, you will win your Yellow Productions t-shirt. If you didn't win one and you want to buy one, you can head over to the Yellow Productions shop at shop.yellow-productions.com. And if you're wondering, Chris, when is the next live stream? Well, head over to the Yellow Productions update at update.yellow-productions.com. Sign up for my email list, and you will be the first one to know when I'm going to publish my next live stream. It will not be next week, no live stream next week, so I'll give you a recorded video in the place of it there. All right.
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
All right, in the chat, I see we've got a few winners, and Michelle, congratulations, you are the person that answered it correctly, and the first person, yes, it was the Marriott in Osaka, or should I say Marriott, the Marriott in Osaka. Other people said Marriott, but not Marriott Osaka to go along with it, though Michelle, you were the first to just to say it in general up in my chat. Second place, but no shirt this time, goes to Brandon, and third place goes to Kel L. But Michelle, send me an email to chris@yellow-productions.com. You'll find it in the description of this video, and let me know what size and where you want me to send your shirt. Well, fellow explorers, always great hanging out with y'all. If you want to see my 7 best Onsen hotels, you'll find that link in the description. And if you want to just see those in a map, or you want to dive into a specific video for one, I've got a link to this thing called Thatch, like my Thatch guide that I put together on Onsen hotels. You can see them on a map, and you can book them and see the prices from there. A lot of people ask me about those things. So if you do click on that link and think it's neat, let me know if I should keep doing those sorts of things. All right, well, fellow explorers, as usual, I won't say goodbye, because I'll see you in the next video.